Hello and welcome. It took it a second to start up there, at least in OBS. You know, the little recording light was just like, I don't know if I want to turn on. But I'm your host, Elizibar, and hopefully we're recording. Everything is okay. Because I'm going to talk and I'm going to pretend that this is a review. It's not really a review per se. It's just kind of a look back at a pretty different era of comics. So big crazy events have been around since at least the 80s, probably before that. Marvel had Secret Wars very early in the 80s. DC had the Crisis, the original Crisis on Infinite Earths. And ever since then, Marvel keeps reusing the word secret. DC keeps reusing the word crisis. It's watered down and it's become meaningless. The events are not special anymore. This is kind of an event, Reign of the Supermen. But it's a little different from other events. Like, they didn't launch like a Reign of the Supermen miniseries with 227 one shots sprawled off of it. They just put it in their regular books. This is the 20th part of the story. This is the 24th part of the story. So, over the course of a month, which is 1 month apart, there were 4 books you needed to read every month to keep up with the story. Maximum Carnage was the same way. I think that was a 13-parter. It spread across the whole Spider-Man line. And there is some great stuff in this. I didn't read a lot of DC when I was a kid, but it's awful fun. You got Superboy and Supergirl here saving the day. I reckon this is probably Coast City. Now that it's been more than 5 minutes since I read it, I don't remember where they're at doing this cleanup, but it was probably Coast City. And he calls her Super Babe, and she's like, Super Babe? Honestly? Like, shuh. He's just marveling. How could someone who looks so hot think so fast? He's like 14, you know? 14-year-olds are not known for being smart. Also, when I was reading this, I couldn't help but notice this ad for Flashback. I love this game, by the way. But I don't think mine had a comic book with it. Maybe I bought mine from like a rental store or something. Maybe mine was a Super Nintendo version. I don't remember. I'd have to go dig it all out and look. That game has a couple of great pieces of music in it, in addition to looking like no other game around. Superman was being rejuvenated in like this restoration chamber thing here, which is actually what the Eradicator, on the cover of this book, is using to charge himself up. He's a Kryptonian super war machine robot. Superman's beat him up in the past a couple of times. There's just lots of great stuff. And even though this is in the middle of a story, it's in the middle of a story, the book, while it's catching Superman up on what's going on, is catching us up on what's going on. So we learn about the Cyborg, we learn about Superboy, we learn about the Man of Steel, learn about the Eradicator, and Superman's like, I've heard enough. Got to get to Metropolis as soon as possible. And so he goes to Metropolis. Meanwhile, you get, of course, crazy super battles. Like, what did you think was going to happen? Boom! Bam! Oh, actually, what? That's a great sound effect. I'm about to sneeze. I gotta mute the mic. Sorry. Man, this book is so good, it made me sneeze. Or it could be the fact that I stirred up a ton of dust while I was putting comics away, and so now my room is like the dust death trap in here. So I had this short box full of comics and I had to file them all away. Ugh. Anyway, this book is just full of crazy, crazy stuff. You see personalities clash. All the Supermen have an ego. They've all got power. They've all got their own agenda. The Eradicator wants to replace Superman. Man of Steel wants to honor Superman. The Superboy thinks, well, he thinks he's a clone. It's complicated. Uh, Eradicator's brief exposure to Superman leaves him vulnerable to Lois Lane. They're going to come to like a peaceful agreement, except some process server rolls up and the Eradicator's like, those papers are the least of your concerns. Zap! Oh no! And then, there's more combat and stuff and da 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 da. It's a hoot. It's a great time. Everything about this is fun. It's fast paced. It doesn't waste any time. There's plenty of action. There's plenty of drama. You know, a book that's just all like people punching each other is kind of boring. Honestly, it's kind of boring. Also, we're totally asking the big question, who watches the Superman? But I also like this little box right here. Metropolis ain't big enough for 4 Supermen. That's probably where the UPC code would go, isn't it? Then here, I got this other issue. It's the next issue in Action Comics, but it's 4 issues later in the story. And there's just all kinds of crazy stuff. The Cyborg has captured Superboy. He's using his cyborg powers to convince the Justice League to go do things for him. Pretty cool. He's in the middle of rebuilding Coast City. There's lots of interpersonal drama, lots of drama with Justice League trying to figure out what they're going to do. You stand with this guy, Gardner. Do I look like an idiot? Of course I do. He just wants to get into a fight, man. That's what Guy Gardner does. Mongol and Cyborg are scheming at each other here, of course. Because villains, that's always their downfall, right? What's that saying? Oft evil will, shall evil mar, something like that. Basically, evil results in its own destruction because of its motivations. So anyway, the Justice League's going to be off the planet, which leaves, the Man of Tomorrow here to do whatever he wants. And he looks cool. The Cyborg, there's one panel towards the front that I thought this was like the dopest panel in the book. The way he's silhouetted in the black there. He gets that cool, steely gray-green that's reflecting the light in the room. I thought that was pretty dope. And this is the kind of stuff that is just awesome. Everything about this story arc is just great. It's super bad guys, super good guys, all going at each other in crazy combinations. Till, of course, one day, good will triumph. And we also get like the Eradicator's backstory. I didn't like the typeface they used here, but it's like the computer telling him what's up. So it makes sense. He looks super cool right there, I think. All in all, these were great. I got these out of the 50-cent bin for free. But I would have been, if I had known how good this stuff was when I was a kid, I might not have bought some Spider-Man books, and I might have bought these instead. When I was a kid, Marvel was totally my jam. Spider-Man was the dopeness. You know what I'm saying? This stuff was great, though. Now, I know this story because I have the Super Nintendo game, The Death and Rebirth of Superman. I've seen the movies. I've read, like, summaries of this stuff, but I've never actually read all of these books. So this is kind of like my first dipping into the Reign of the Supermen in the actual comic format. And it was great. It makes me want to read the rest of it. How many times in your life have you picked up a comic book and you've read it, and that comic book has made you just want to read everything else? I can't say that that's like, maybe it happens like on a weekly basis because I tend to only buy comics I really like or comics that are really terrible. I never seem to get like comics that are just kind of meh, you know? Maybe that's not true. Maybe that's not true, but I feel like that's true. But every week there's always like a book that I'm like super into, and it makes me want to like read everything else related to it. Uh, Heck, just this past week, like I read this thing. This was so dope. I want to read the rest of Shuriken. I read Absolute Carnage. It was so good. It makes me want to go read the spin-offs that I know aren't any good. Justice League Dark got me so hyped for the incoming story arc. I wish it was all out. I mean, I was so mad. I ran out of book when I was reading this. I kind of felt like that when I finished reading these. It's like, holy crap, I want to read the other 20, 30, however many parts of this story. I kind of like doing your event like this inside of existing comics instead of doing a tie-in issue in an existing comic and then having like the actual miniseries. This feels cheap. This feels like the way you should do it. I don't know. That's my opinion. This was a fun look back at an era of the past that I wasn't super familiar with. And I'm using super because it's Superman. Superman, super familiar, super duper. It's a good book. Well, it's a good pair of books, and I bet this whole run is equally as fun, man. These people, they just went for it. They're like, look, we're going to give you crazy super battles, and then they did it. They delivered on what they promised. See, they promised Metropolis ain't big enough for 4 Supermen. What happens? 2 of them fight in this book. The Man of Tomorrow makes his move. What happened in this book? The Man of Tomorrow made his move. Oh, there's one place they talk about the Eradicator, who he's using to get the Justice League out of the way. Let me... Yeah. Get the Justice League out of the way. And they fill us in. Little did they know, he's already dead. I killed him, of course. And then they give us the references so we can go back and find it. Editorial guys, they don't do this. Editorial doesn't do this anymore. You used to be able to be get references to where something happened, so you could go look it up. You could go read it for yourself. It's great. It's great. I'll see you all next time. Gosh, I got to read more old DC because I have apparently just been missing out my whole life on some really good stuff. You all take care of yourselves. You have a great day. Remember to like, comment, subscribe, all that good stuff. Until next time, bye-bye.